You are now tuned into check this out. We connect the streets.
You are now tuned in to the Last of Its Kind podcast, produced by humans made for humans.
Check this out. We connect the streets.
Mike John's in the building.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, baby.
This is Mike Johns, bringing it to you live each and every week. Check this out with the hottest news in tech. Today, our special guest is Nikhil Goel, the COO of Archer Aviation. Flying cars, we know that from the Jetsons, TV shows, things of that nature. I'd like to say that Henry Ford must have been a futurist because I'll start with this quote. Henry Ford said this in 1940. Mark my words, a combination of airplanes and motor cars is coming. You may smile, but it will come. We're going to be talking about flying cars when science fiction becomes science fact.
You know, the best example to think about is, say, JFK to Manhattan. That's a trip tens of thousands of Americans or tourists do every day. It can take an hour and a half to even longer than 2 hours by car if you leave at the wrong time. By air, that journey is only about 5 minutes. You can imagine landing on your flight at the airport and then being at home within, call it 20 minutes door to door. That's our vision. These aircraft can land just about anywhere where you've got enough space.
This is a real deal. Flying cars are here. They're coming next year to New York City. They'll be in LA for the Olympics. Nikhil, how are you doing?
Mike, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. So I want to just dive in. Flying cars, we know that from the Jetsons, TV shows, things of that nature. I did a little research and, I don't know what to think. I'd like to say that Henry Ford must have been a futurist because I'll start with this quote. Mark my words, a combination of airplanes and motor cars is coming. You may smile, but it will come. And Henry Ford said this in 1940. Here we are today.
Yeah, well, listen, I think one of my other favorite quotes is the future's already here, but it's just not evenly distributed. Flying cars from a technology perspective have been around for at least the last decade. Around 10 years ago or so is when NASA figured out you could use batteries to fly people around. And so the technologies existed, but there's been a number of other things which have finally allowed us to commercialize the technology at scale. And so Archer's raised $1.5 billion to do it. We've partnered with companies like United Airlines to help speed that up and inject some capital into the equation. And so our plan is to have our flying cars ready for commercialization by the end of next year, where you can start seeing them in places like Abu Dhabi and New York.
Wow. Okay, now, is there plans for other parts of the U.S.?
Definitely. So our launch markets in the United States would be New York City, Los Angeles, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Miami. Those are the ones that we're very excited about.
Now, flying cars are also known as urban air mobilities. Tell me a little bit about that and how that works, how that phrase was coined, I would assume.
The FAA.
Absolutely. So the electric, the eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing air taxis, that's actually a phrase that was coined first by NASA. Probably why it's such a wieldy name, but it's pretty literal and it's sort of the term that is stuck. And so eVTOLs is what most of, at least the scientific world, calls them, which is just another word for flying cars.
Another word for flying. Got it. Walk me through. So we're talking about here in the U.S. You'll plan to roll out in New York. How will it work? What is the play? Are these things that are stationed by airports, or how does it work?
Yeah, so, the best example to think about is, say, JFK to Manhattan. That's a trip tens of thousands of Americans or tourists do every day. It can take an hour and a half to even longer than 2 hours by car if you leave at the wrong time. By air, that journey is only about 5 minutes. And so you can imagine landing on your flight at the airport and then being at home within, call it 20 minutes door to door. That's our vision.
These aircraft can land just about anywhere where you've got enough space. So that could be a rooftop of a building. It could be the upper deck of a parking garage. It could be, a plot of land by the water. These aircraft are compact. They're very quiet, so they can land without disrupting you and your neighbors. And they're very affordable. So our expectation is you'll be able to take these trips on an Archer aircraft for the same price as an Uber or a taxi.
And what's the difference between, just for our listeners, the difference in capability between a helicopter and a flying car?
Helicopters have been around for decades. We don't really see a lot of them. And that's for a few reasons. One is they're very, very loud. One large rotor on top that has to spin really fast to keep you in the air. And by spinning really fast, it generates a ton of noise. And so the end result is they're very noisy, and most cities in the world have effectively banned them. Number two is they're very unsafe. They have hundreds of what are called single fault parts. So if any of those parts were to fail during flight, it would be catastrophic. And then number three is they're very expensive because the maintenance required to keep that helicopter afloat is very, very pricey. And so the end result is you get an aircraft that is loud, that is not very safe, and that is very expensive. eVTOLs, on the other hand, the aircraft that Archer is building, instead of one large rotor, we have a dozen small all-electric rotors. That gets us to a place where it's 100 times quieter than a helicopter. And it's also far safer because you have full redundancy across the board. And then on top of that, you can operate all electrically at the same price as an Uber.
And now when we talk about Uber and you spoke on cost, what is that cost, let's say, from JFK to Manhattan?
It's too early to speculate, but an Uber can cost between $80 to $120. And so we're aiming for that same price point. So imagine, call it between $100 to $120 a person.
There's also plans for the rollout for LA. And I think that there's been a buzz really kind of brewing in terms of this could potentially be in place for the Olympics. How true is that?
I think that the Summer Olympics will take place in 2028 in Los Angeles. Our plan is certainly to be up and running in LA by that point. Furthermore, the FAA, which governs the space, actually released a paper last year saying the same thing, saying that it was a U.S. prerogative to be ready by then, to be at scale for the Olympics. And so
will we see flying cars over Compton and other cities in LA?
I certainly hope so. I mean, the beauty of this form of transportation is that you can simply add another node to the network, and now all of a sudden you have connectivity across all of it. That's not something you can do with, say, railroads, right? Where you've got to go build a track. So you could just go put a vertiport in Compton or in Orange County or in Hawthorne or, in Long Beach, and all of a sudden you get access to the full sort of network.
And you mentioned the FAA and government are actually pushing this. How does that look, let's say, by 2030, in terms of traffic in the skies? And then that mirrored with airplanes.
Yeah, well, the beauty is that these fly at a different altitude than airplanes. They fly at around
like drones are at different altitude. This would be a higher than drones. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, we get the benefit of being at a different altitude. And then in addition to that, the altitude and air traffic controls have started to become increasingly digitized. And so that allows us to get to a place where, this is going to become increasingly digital and integrate into the airspace in a way that's very safe.
So we're LA based, and it's safe to say that the debut of this will probably be during the Olympics 2028. And there will be a new LA upon this arrival. Same thing, New York, you're planning to roll that out when in New York?
I'm from New York.
Our hope is to be able to do that by the end of next year. So, I think
New York will be ahead of LA?
I think so, only because New York already has a helicopter ecosystem. And so there's sort of the guidelines and the ways to do that there.
So this will actually debut during Mayor Adams' time in office, yeah?
Yeah, Mayor Adams is a big proponent of this technology. And so we're very excited to have him be a continued proponent.
Just sidebar, and I'm kind of curious. Usher, the R&B singer, Grammy winner rather, singer, how did he get involved with Archer?
Well, look, we've been in a very lucky position where celebrities and entertainers have, been fascinated by the technology and are excited to bring this into the fold.
And is he an equity shareholder or anything, or just somebody that endorsed the product, or what was the level of involvement?
No, I mean, look, we have not paid any money to any of these entertainers. It's really more about being good partners and enabling them to use our technology as part of their image for the future.
So Usher having a concert in New York, this would probably be that. This is the rather than the Bentleys and all the flashy whips that they typically drive. This may be the new thing.
Well, it's certainly one of the new things. It's exciting to think about this as a new form of transportation that many other people can use.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I look at autonomous vehicles, when they're rolling those out, there was the accident that happened a couple years back, and that put a little setback for the autonomous vehicles, and they since fixed that. What measures do you have in place for the flying car industry, for Archer?
Yeah, the big beauty of these aircraft is that they're very safe. They've got full redundancy across the board. You have a dozen electric propellers that give you redundancy, and that allows us to really, make sure that this is a form of transportation that is just as safe as flying in a commercial airliner.
Right on. And you had noted with the New York going from the airport to Manhattan, you guys are in the Bay Area?
Yeah, we're located in Silicon Valley.
Got it. So then if San Fran is one of the spots, let's say you're at the San Francisco airport, there's a pad, then you go to that pad, just like how Uber is located and Lyft is located right at the airports. Then you go to that stop, get on board, you fly that, and then that takes you where? Where does it take you? It doesn't take you directly to your home, does it?
No, so it would take you
like to a train station.
So in New York, it would take you to one of the three helipads there. So
okay.
There's one on West 30th, one downtown, and one on East 34th.
Okay. And then for the West Coast, like LA, how would that work? There'll be helipads as well?
Yeah, so either existing helipads that are already there on tops of buildings, or we sort of go, we can go work with real estate developers to build new vertiports, perhaps on the tops of buildings or on the upper decks of parking garages.
It's awesome. So many questions. I look at that helipads as a part of the future of work. So when you're on these flying cars, what are some of the things that you can do? Are there any Wi-Fi connectivity, entertainment programs while you're getting from point A to point B? Is there new economies that could emerge from this?
Definitely. I think if you look at any new form of transportation, it's been easy to see that there's all sorts of new forms of financing and businesses that emerge. So we're excited to create an ecosystem around our product.
This is awesome. And then you also noted overseas, will be rolling out in Dubai. Is that also in 25?
Yeah, that's right.
Anything in Europe, London?
So, we're excited about the European cities. We haven't talked about any of our plans there publicly just yet, but obviously we would be excited to be in cities like that. We have also talked about India and Korea, and we've got commercialization deals there.
Got it. And so for the rest of America, we got it covered on the coast. What about areas like Chicago, Atlanta, Texas, with all that space? Are those in the roadmap of things? Like, in other words, will this be something common that we won't just see in the hotspots of New York, LA?
Yeah, listen, I think any city in the world that has a route where people are stuck in traffic is a candidate for this. And so that's what's really exciting, is all it takes to go launch in a city or on a route is being able to land safely on either side of that route.
This is fascinating. I'm looking forward to this, and I would envision, like, for the Olympics and things like that, I will probably know more for how it goes in New York, but there will be lines for people just who want to try this out the gate, right?
I hope so.
That fits into the business model.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, Nikhil, I want to thank you very much for your time. This is exciting times, what you're doing. You guys are shaping the future, and we're really big on the future of work. Again, thank you so much. This is Mike Johns, Yo Check This Out News, and we're out.
You just finished listening to another episode of Yo, Check This Out, connecting the streets from LA to the world. Follow Yo, Check This Out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for the hottest news in tech. Be sure to hit that like button.